Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today there has been an amazingly large update in Puzzle & Dragons that has me very excited, and there's been plenty of buffs and new evolutions that we can fully utilize, and this article/video will help go over the notable highlights as well as at least discussing all the new evolutions. So I'm also planning to try and work on a farmable monster tier list from both a sub/leader point of view as well as an inheritance point of view, because we can now inherit farmable monsters, which I'll explain a little shortly in the video. So new evolutions are basically the most exciting part of PAD to a certain extent because they help breathe new life into the game, because those older cards are now remarkable for the most part, or at least we hope they are. So first off, I need to click continue reading, and then I'm going to talk about Amon and Bale. So with Amon and Bale, and I guess Belial as well in that whole Pantheon, their major downside with their whole usage was the fact that their active skill was very challenging and resource intensive to skill up, and it really did not accomplish very much. Like a counterattack, sure, it has incredibly niche situational value, but why would we want to do a counterattack and add on 2 turns of cooldown when it really doesn't have much value for the most part? So with a reincarnated evolution, this changes that because their active skill becomes more powerful and potent in that they actually remove hazard orbs. So now you get a single orb changer plus hazard orb removal, and you still preserve your hard orbs. So that is very powerful, and while their board chain synergy may not necessarily be perfect, at least gives you another option, but if you don't have any other way to remove hazardous orbs, this is a great card to utilize. Now, with their reincarnated forms, Amon with their new forms, these 2 cards basically lost their signature awakenings in that Amon lost his Machine Killer and Bale lost their co-op boost plus bind immunity. But these have been replaced with double TPA, so whether or not these are beneficial to you is kind of up to you. Maybe you might use them as an inheritance, or if you're running a TPA-heavy team, this is helpful, because with at least Amon, the Machine Killer is somewhat situational, because at least nowadays we have access to Arena 3 and Latent Killer Tamadras, and you can acquire Machine Killers and stick them on your team, and because Amon is water, most water cards are physical, they can use the Machine Killer Latent, so I guess in theory it's not as important, and for myself and my Mary team, I've actually stuck Machine Killers on all 4 of my subs, so it does have value there. On the other hand, Bale's loss of bind immunity can be detrimental. Maybe the Dark sub-attribute was a win or hit or miss depending on your team, but losing the co-op boost can be helpful because it allows for easier damage control, because Bale's co-op boost would allow them to do 50% damage at all times. So when one card is hitting significantly harder, it makes it very challenging to actually stall and dance around on absorption bosses if you don't have Fujin. So I feel like Amon is an upgrade mostly because the active skill is relevant and the Machine Killer was niche. Bale, it can be hit or miss depending on the type of team you utilize. Next is Satsuki. And Satsuki is following the trend of other Godfest exclusives in that they have split evolutions that produce better leader and better sub. And which one you choose to use is somewhat up to you, because for the most part, there is no real pressing need to use Satsuki on a team at this point in time. Mostly because Dark TPA tends to be Dark Athena, but Satsuki breaks water, so then again it's like not as helpful. And there's nowhere to really fully utilize Satsuki to their maximum potential. So I honestly feel that you should just wait unless you really wanted the artwork, or find a great place to use them right now, because Satsuki does not have a strong home, so I don't know which evolution is going to be necessarily better in the next couple of months. Like maybe yes, if you have lots of materials to spare, choose your favorite, but neither are necessarily offering something truly amazing. Because yes, while one of the sub version has Devil Killer, we don't really have any premier dark farming teams at this point, so I don't really feel that we can use Satsuki to their fullest, and for myself, I'm actually going to just leave Satsuki as is, and just wait to see if they can find a better home. Next is Reincarnated Sakuya, and Sakuya was really a fan favorite for a couple of years, especially during the beginning of Puzzle & Dragons, mostly because of her actually very powerful leader skill at the time, as well as stunning artwork again at the time. I guess it's still stunning now, to be fair. She's still one of my favorite monsters from a nostalgia point of view. But regardless, she has fallen quite far from grace in that she is now mostly a niche inheritance option and a situational sub. And this new reincarnated evolution does at least improve her leader skills multiplier, but it doesn't help address her main glaring weakness, which was inconsistent activation / damage control, as well as any defensive multiplier. So with the reincarnated form, Sakuya jumps up to 400 times attack, but that requires 10 combos and your fire, water, wood, and light activation. So you have to chase 2 different activation requirements, and that is problematic because why not just play something like Anubis if you're just going for combos? Anubis is far more rewarding, as well as not requiring the rainbow activation, and he also has a recovery component built in. So it's just like, where do we use Sakuya? Like, she is a glass cannon, but there are better glass cannons out there. Maybe you obviously enjoy the playstyle, and if you are able to hit 7 to 8 combos, she will at least yield 12.5 to 15 times multiplier by herself. So basically 225 times for 8 combos and her rainbow activation. So she does punch very hard. And it's just mainly the limitation is the fact that there's no defensive multiplier, so there's no health or recovery modifier. So she is vulnerable to mechanics. And there's a very high skill cap ceiling involved because you need to basically optimize the board every single time, as well as pray you have those 4 colors. So in terms of team building, you could basically use any card you want that has high stats, high utility, high time extent. You could maybe even potentially mirror her like Raw Dragon, but then again, you should be playing Raw Dragon if you have that team anyways. But you at least don't have to prioritize cards like Kana or any damage enhancement because she already packs a big enough punch passively, provided you hit that 8 combo threshold. So I feel like she is going to be fun. I might tinker around with her because I do like Sakuya, and I did have a good team for her in the past, but one thing that is unfortunate is the fact that she lost her water typing, and that makes it a little harder to team build because you almost always want to use a Kali in some way, shape, or form, so those are overlapping fire coverage. So now we need to find someone else with water, so we'll have to be creative with team building. And now we come to Haku, and perhaps this month we can rename Puzzle & Dragons to Puzzles & Haku because she is pretty much a premier stellar card at this point. She is probably going to be one of the most desired roles from the Rare machine for at least this month and quite some time to come, because in all honesty, if you can build a team that can support 2 to 3 of her, she's going to be quite high tier, or that team will be quite high tier, just because of the fact of how powerful Haku is. Now, you may think that, well, a tricolor board changer without hearts is not as meaningful, but we're starting to ease away from the heart cross meta. So that is reassuring because now this active skill has value, and furthermore, she is perhaps one of the strongest cards available now that has the 7 combo awakening as well as dual TPA and 1000 weighted stats. So with dual TPA and 7 combo awakening, she is hitting for an incredibly high amount of damage when you achieve 7+ combos. So this is amazing because now you have subs, if you have duplicate Hakus, that are dealing tremendous amounts of damage with 7 combos, and we're starting to kind of ease into more combo-oriented leaders with the future reincarnated Kushinada Hime, as well as Dark Athena. They want to make combos, they want to optimize the board, and with Haku as a key sub, she makes it all happen. Now, the only time you may be hesitant to reincarnate your Haku is if you use her as a staple sub in your Aizen team, and you cannot live without that extra water typing and thus higher recovery multiplier. So that can be a case to not reincarnate your Haku, but it may be worthwhile in finding other water subs to cover her. And if you have a Zerog Infinity, he actually gained a co-op boost, so now he is providing 50% more recovery, so that might be at least something to consider. You can run double Zerog Infinities, you might solve all your recovery issues. Next is Reincarnated Hermes, and Reincarnated Hermes' new evolution does help address the horrible base health. He does gain about 1200 more of it, so at least it makes him tanky and at least a more viable option to run as a sub. 1000 weighted stats are great. Time extend, I believe, is also beneficial, and he does have a powerful active and awakenings for the most part. And he is starting to pave the way for Reincarnated Sun Quan as a double leader pairing, in that you would be able to form a reasonably tanky team that hits quite hard with modest recovery. However, the main drawback is that Sun Quan requires an active skill for activation, so you may struggle to use an active skill every turn in order to optimize your damage as well as have the recovery component. And following the Greco-Roman trend is Reincarnated Persephone. And Reincarnated Persephone finally regains her god typing, which means she now can be used as quite a powerful sub for Yomi Dragon because she has dual TPA, she has Orb Enhances, she has a Skyfall active, and a heavy Orb Changer. So that is quite amazing. And she does kind of act as almost a TPA-oriented as Shamali on various dark teams because you have that Skyfall mechanic. Yes, you may not be able to remove hazards, but she does have higher weighted stats, most notably more recovery. However, like Haku, you may be loath to switch if she is being used for that recovery stick from that water typing. So again, if she is a key card in your Aizen team, don't reincarnate your Persephone at this point in time until you find a way to address the recovery issue. However, she does make quite a powerful Dark Athena sub, again because of the TPAs, Dark Skyfall, powerful active, and she actually could even be a budget pairing if we get Dark Athena. You can pair Persephone with Dark Athena. Next is Reincarnated Izanagi, and for the most part, Izanagi is essentially a lesser Miru, mostly because he's vulnerable to binds and has a weaker active skill. So when a farmable card pretty much outclasses a rare machine card, there's not much incentive to utilize him, and while Gung-Ho is trying to make him more tasty with this reincarnated evolution, it just doesn't compete because, in all honesty, bind immunity and a stronger base active wins out. His multiplier isn't higher, and while he does provide 2x recovery, which does aid in stalling without a heart cross, it's just safer to run Miru, because yes, you may be able to run the bind immune badge with him, but double Miru can run either the Maniac Recovery or Maniac Health badge, and that is quite impactful for the most part. Next is Reincarnated Astaroth, and Reincarnated Astaroth has been ranked very highly on Japan tier list when she was debuted, but then she's kind of dropped back down. Perhaps it was hype and just getting people excited, or maybe because it causes arousal in people to get them to come visit their website and get them talking about it. But she's kind of stabilizing a bit lower down in the tier list, but that's not to say that she's not a formidable leader in her own right. When you use Reincarnated Astaroth, you basically have 1,000 weighted stats on the leader, as well as 4x health and 64x attack for devils and healers, for devil and wood healers. Sorry, I phrased that poorly. And that at least provides quite a tanky team. You can run the Maniac Recovery badge, and with healers you have naturally high base healing, so there is potential for a lot of content clearing. Now, her main drawback is naturally that restrictive subpool that hasn't necessarily widened very much over time, and if you have Michael's Elise, which is the green Valkyrie, as well as Romea and duplicate Astaroths, you can run quite a powerful team, but I just feel like it's going to be challenging to find friends, mostly because she is not going to be popular, because yes, she is powerful, but there are stronger teams available with gentler team building requirements, so it may be tough to find friends to fully capitalize on her. And now we come to Reincarnated Loki, and the Norse Pantheon has kind of been dipping down, mostly because the gemstones active skills are just so much stronger by comparison, and that is true for the most part. They're kind of losing ground, but Loki is at least kind of rising up, mostly because he has double skill bind resist, double TPA, and 7 combo awakenings. Now, those awakenings do make him actually a very desirable Dark Athena sub, because Dark Athena does not have any skill bind resist of herself, so you actually have to rely on one sub having 2 in order to have 100% resistance in solo mode. So Loki is the single best choice for that, because he is the best double SBR sub currently available for Dark, and the TPA 7 combo awakening synergizes beautifully with the Reincarnated Haku trio you want to run with an ideal team. So this is partially why Loki is excited and popular, because Dark Athena has tremendous value, and hopefully we get her soon in North America. Now, while the Norse gods did get buffed to 3 turns for their 2x damage, it's really not enough, and you're almost always going to inherit a gemstone over top of Loki if you possess one of them that is a appropriate or applicable to Dark Athena. Moving forward, we come to Reincarnated Yomi. And Reincarnated Yomi just was a bit of a disappointment in all honesty, because I was hoping they would mirror New Year's Yomi in that they gain a defensive multiplier component for matching combos instead of just more brute force damage. So Reincarnated Yomi just becomes a very hard-hitting card that does have a gentler activation requirement compared to their Awoken form, because they now can start scaling at 6 instead of 7 combos for 36 times, as well as ramping up to massive burst damage potential with their 5 or 1 enhance. So it may kind of feel like you're playing a very subpar Aizen in that you do have that flat 36 times with 6 combos, which should be always doable. And you also have, but the problem is you lack bind immunity, you have lower maximum damage, and you have a weaker base active skill, but they're at least more consistent than their previous form. And the fact that they have 1,000 weighted stats, God typing, they can be used on many dark teams as a base for skill inheritance because they provide 4 time extents, so plus 2 seconds just by themselves. So if you have a team that's very starved for time extend, Reincarnated Yomi is a great card to utilize there. So I just wish it was like New Year's Yomi. I did like more damage is great, but we can use 7 combo awakening cards like Haku. So I'd rather have a lower multiplier but a defensive component to justify it. So with this new update, we are actually able to inherit farmable monsters from the farmable monsters as skill inheritance. And this is tremendous because now we don't have to rely purely on rare machine cards, and we can utilize these cards for a stat transfer if they have a very high base cooldown, as well as an SDR buffer, because you stick on a very unskilled, say, Grizzar, and you transfer over numerous weighted stats for Dark, as well as having a large buffer, because for the most part people have been using Ras or Titania, and now we have the option of using all of these cards. So something to keep in mind, keep one of them unskilled in each color and you have a great SDR buffer with stat transfer. So while all these cards obviously have value, I'm only going to highlight the notable ones because that's a very long list and some of them they don't really have active skills that are helpful. So Couchmar is the first one I want to pay tribute to because they do have a Zuo board in that they do spawn fire, wood, and dark orbs with a 30% damage mitigation shield. Now, they can be skilled up to an 11-turn cooldown or be unskilled at 22, so they have decent SDR buffering, as well as offering at least a tricolor board with a shield. But unfortunately, right now, Zuo-style boards are not in very high demand at this point in time, but that could change in the future. Next is Anna Valkyrie, and Anna Valkyrie has actually a very powerful active skill. It does break hard orbs and converts them to enhanced light. So being able to generate orbs as well as enhance them is actually very powerful, and being able to do that on a 6-turn cooldown as well as inheriting actually provides a lot of burst potential for various teams. While you may just choose to use Anna Valkyrie as a sub, you at least have board change synergy of cards like, say, Saria. You can create a 2/3 enhanced light orb and 1/3 fire. So you have amazing burst potential, and it can even be used with something like Raphael for farming. You pop Raphael, tank the hit, have a full board enhanced light, things blow up. Next is Lynthia and Gainot, and both Lynthia and Gainot are rogue descend bosses, and they do have quite powerful base stats, but they do possess a full board changer in that they do produce a Dark Kali board along with Jammer/Poisons. Now, this is an option to inherit onto Raw Dragon teams that don't have double Dark Kali actives. So if you, say, have strong gods like, say, Reincarnated Parvati, you can inherit Lynthia over top of her and have a stat transfer, as well as now a board changer that will produce an activatable Raw Dragon board. So it does provide Raw Dragon teams with at least some other options. It cuts down a bit on the rigidity, but you still obviously want to use Dark Kali actives if possible because the hazards need to be cleared, and if you get an awkward amount and it's challenging to match them, it kind of is problematic. Next is the Green Snake, whose name I cannot pronounce, and the Green Snake basically has an ability that poisons as well as a full board changer. Now, the full board changer that produces jammers is kind of unusual, but it can combo with something like Australis to provide a 50% wood board with some other colors alongside of it. Now, that is quite potent for the most part because it's another, at least, board changer for mindless farming, but the poison is important, and I use them as an alternative on my special Descend Rush farming team because it combines poison with a board change to synergize with Australis, and not everyone had a red Odin Tamazo to inherit for poison, so more happiness overall. Next is Zhang Fei, and Zhang Fei is usually forgotten, but he does have a unique and powerful active skill in that he does provide 1 turn of delay as well as Dark to Wood. So Dark to Wood is covered by Liu Bei, but not necessarily everyone has Liu Bei, and maybe you don't want to break Hard Orbs, or maybe you need a 1-turn delay. So it is a great card to inherit. Wood teams are quite happy, and amusingly, I just feel like Wood teams came out ahead with the inheritance options because there just tends to be stronger Wood cards for inheritance, or just Wood in general. Next are buffs, and you should always take a look at the official Facebook page because they will cover things that I may not necessarily touch upon because there are lots of things that are occurring. So the first one is Dantalion, and Dantalion is a 6-star Godfest exclusive that was lackluster, but becomes actually reasonably formidable with his new buff, because now they have the ability to achieve 1,350 times attack with 2 fire crosses and 2 heart combos. In addition to that, they have 51% damage mitigation with just the heart combos. So now you can mix and match crosses, heart combos for damage mitigation, more damage, less damage. So there is at least some damage control, but the fact that you can hit hard while surviving is crucial to success for at least endgame or more challenging content. So this is actually quite exciting for those who have Dantalion. He actually has some value as a leader. Next is Anubis, and Anubis's buff is actually one of the more exciting ones because it actually transforms him into a much more reliable leader, because his leader skill now starts scaling at 8 instead of 9 combos, which is huge because most boards have 7 to 8 combos that you can actually achieve, and then you have to pray for Skyfalls for 9+. So now you at least have much more consistent activation, and you still retain the same maximum multiplier, you just start scaling at a lower amount. And that is tremendous overall. Furthermore, you also have 1.5 times recovery when using an active skill. So now, if you have cards like, say, Gunma or Da Qiao, is that how you say it? Like the new 3 Kingdoms 2 Light Girl, who is a 2-turn cooldown, you can utilize those active skills, have the bonus recovery, have your multiplier, blow things up with 8 combos. So this is amazing, and it makes it just a little less luck-based. Furthermore, his base active skill became 1 turn less cooldown, so now you can use him a little faster, so he does have more value as a sub, because now you can inherit something over top of him, he can be used to clear his hazards, and he can also be used to clear binds with a row of hearts because of that recover bind awakening in his reincarnated form. So Anubis just gains tremendous value overall as a sub and leader. Next is Best Cat, and Best Cat received the same treatment in terms of active skill buff, but that only helps her as a leader because no one really used her as a sub because her base active just really doesn't do much. However, her leader skill is also more forgiving in that it starts scaling at a lower combo threshold, as well as having the same 1.5 times recovery for 1 bastet when using an active skill. So now she can hit harder with less combos, as well as having recovery. And that makes her team building much gentler because now you can run the health badge safely, you can heal up, and just makes her more consistent overall. So while she may not necessarily be a top-tier leader, she's a much more fun, much more consistent, and stable leader overall. Next we come to Sheet, and you can say Holy Sheet, because Holy Sheet has gained a buff to her base attack, so that means she is the hardest hitting TPA card in the game. So that is great, but right now water TPA teams are a little lackluster, so now when she's transferred as a skill inheritance, you at least transfer some stats in the attack department, because her active skill is just amazing overall. Next is Avalon Drake, and Avalon Drake gains a 4th skill boost, so now he joins the ranks of Blue Odin and Tengu for amazing skill boost options, and it gives wood teams at least an on-color offensive option for skill boost, because now you can use Avalon Drake as a sub, have those rows, have a powerful board changer, while having 4 skill boosts. Just amazing overall. I should probably awaken mine now on Fantastic. Next is the Mech Dragons, and the Mech Dragons gained an additional row or skill boost and row awakening. So while they may not necessarily be top tier subs, it at least makes them a little more appealing because now they can be used a bit more for button farming, because you can pop the row generation, swipe to match the row, and just be happy. You make less combos and you can possibly sweep floors. So that has most value for the water one, the fire one, and the wood one because they have speed farming teams in Yamamoto, Mary, and Awoken Liu Bei. And next we come to Zerog Infinity. And Zerog Infinity is pretty staple sub on Aizen teams because he has massive base health as well as the water sub-typing in order to provide recovery. So he does have beneficial awakenings, he does have a useful active skill, and his stats are quite respectable. So he was used quite often. However, with this patch, he gains co-op boost awakening, and that means he has 50% more stats. So when you play in co-op. So now if you have basically 2 Zerog Infinities, you basically would have had now 3 Zerog Infinities in terms of raw stats. So now Aizen teams can hit health thresholds more easily, and you may not necessarily have to bring a damage mitigation component because now you can circumnavigate, say, large preemptives or large hits that you had to shield otherwise. So that opens up more options for orb changes or delays or other types of utility that you may find beneficial. So this is fantastic, and that's why Zerog Infinity still remains one of the best farmable cards, and he will be on my tier list in the future. Next we come to the Valkyries, and these lovely ladies all gain the 7 combo awakening as well as the new guard break mechanic. Now, the 7 combo awakening, we all know, makes you deal 50% more damage when you, double damage when you hit 7+ combos. But the guard break is exciting because the guard break will eventually become 100% defense break when you match all attributes. So you proc all 5 colors, and you have that awaken, you reduce the enemy's defense to 0. And that has tremendous applications against pre-draws and content in Arena 3, such as the Latent Tamadra invade, because that 5 million and 10 million defense become 0. And the power of 0 means they die right away. You don't have to budget a true damage laser, you don't have to budget as many other active skills to dance with the Latent Tamadra, you can just kill them with ease, provided you had a rainbow board. So this opens up at least team building options from an inheritance point of view, because now you no longer need to bring that poison or true damage. So one thing I want to draw attention to is the blue Valkyrie, because she becomes actually a staple sub on the Reincarnated Kushinada Hime teams, because you run 3 Reincarnated Hakus and the blue one for the light coverage. Now, you can obviously run the red one for light coverage, but the red one makes it problematic against healing absorption bosses like Vishnu. So the blue one is more desirable for that reason. You cover all your colors, you guard break, you dance through them, and that's what also helps make her a much more stable and top-tier leader. So, in conclusion, there has been a lot of updates, and if I have missed something, please let me know, because there was a lot to try and cover, and this is kind of what gets me excited about Puzzle & Dragons: new content, new things to play with, new things to strive to and work towards. So, let me know what you found most exciting in this new and large content update in the comments below. Hopefully you all have a fantastic day, and happy puzzling!